is your name? What is your quest? What is the airspeed of a laden swallow?
Okay, I got pulled into a hockey game and, well, stuff happens. Which, of course, is not what happened. What's going on is that every crown, filling, bridge, what have you, that I've had installed over the last 30 years are all picking the same moment to break down. I'm going through a little remodeling, and it's going to take a while, so you get to laugh at me for probably another couple weeks. And I swear I am not on a Lisa Wingate kick. It's just the way that books are falling to me right now. You know, random. And given the obvious crapshoot we call the universe, no one should be suspicious if similar themes or authors run close together. Now, I think this happened because I hit a list of popular books somewhere and downloaded a couple that sounded interesting, which, Before We Were Yours, was one of those that sounded interesting. So did this, hence their appearance. And two books by the same author in about the same number of months does not indicate fandom, just randomness. So don't get any ideas. It is enough, though, to recognize an authorial pattern. To wit, Wingate selects some obscure historical cruelty and chooses to tell about it through two protagonists, one living the cruelty and one living under the results of the cruelty some decades later. I don't know if this holds true for all of her writings, but it has in these two. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Obscure historical cruelties should be brought to light, often and early, lest we forget that people are not nice. Mrs. Tam and the child-stealing eugenicists of the 1930s exposed in Before We Were Yours should never be forgotten or forgiven. And neither should we forget the one in this novel. The heartbreaking attempt by the newly liberated slave population to find their lost relatives shortly after the Civil War. The two protagonists, decades apart, are the resourceful and somewhat unbelievable Hanny Gossett in 1875 and the insufferable, goody-goody, bright-eyed naif Benedetta Silva in 1987. Why Wingate has to make her later protagonist so annoying, I don't know. But obviously the more compelling character is the earlier one, Hanny. After all, she is the one who has to go through the crap, while Benny, oh, what a cute nickname, merely has to find out about it in a very cute way by proposing a history project to her incredibly underprivileged and undermotivated, oppressed, underclass students in an all but abandoned school in Louisiana. Thank God we've got bright-eyed, privileged college graduate teacher candidates intent on reducing their student loans to come on down from their upper middle class schools and show the benighted the way. Hanny and her entire family were kidnapped off the Gossett plantation just before the Civil War ended by the idiot Gossett's son, who decides to get as much money off of them before the war ends, since Pop William Gossett doesn't seem so inclined. Hanny's mother and siblings are sold off one by one at obscure Texas towns until Hanny is rescued by a Texas sheriff who sends her back to the Gossett plantation. Back into slavery. Well, that's just so much better, isn't it? Of course not. Nothing has improved for Hanny, and in fact, she's now lost her family. Her only connection to them three right here, blue beads, which her grandmother had brought with her from Africa. Every one of her missing family members has these beads, which will be important later. 10 years later, Hanny is a sharecropper on the Gossett plantation run by Mrs. Gossett, who is as cruel and vindictive overseer as any of the ones under the times of slavery. William has gone to Texas to look for his lost son. Hanny is still no more than a slave in word only, with the vague promise of her own land after some years of the sharecropping. Hanny becomes suspicious that Mrs. Gossett has no intention of following through on the land promise, and one night, while searching through the house library for Pop Williams' will and land papers that should give her title to the land at some point, she overhears Lavinia Gossett, William's daughter, and Juno Jane, also William's daughter, but by his other Creole wife, boy, that William got around, plotting to locate the will and papers for themselves because Juno believes she is entitled to far more of the inheritance than Lavinia is willing to concede. Lavinia convinces Juno to follow her down to the riverport because she knows where the papers are located. Hanny, who knows what a snake Lavinia is, follows them, and then things get out of hand. Well out of hand. No need to get into the details. Just know the three girls, who are enemies and at cross purposes as they are forced to ally in the face of robbers, rapists, white slave traders, murderers, the Klan, old Confederate soldiers still torqued off about events, gamblers, drunks, you know, Texas. Interspersed are some good guy sheriffs and soldiers, as well as a fictionalized version of the extraordinary and legendary U.S. Marshal Sam Bass. The three disguise themselves as young boys, something they probably could have gotten away with for, say, 3 minutes or so, but they get to carry it off with authorial blessing for quite some time. Well past believability, but hey, it's okay. It's fiction. In the midst of this, Hanny discovers the Southwestern Christian Advocate newspaper, which was a real newspaper, and that one that carried ads from former slaves seeking their sold and lost relatives. As she searches for her own family, Hanny begins taking down information from others along the way, writing down the names and last places that the Buffalo Soldiers, drovers, and other former slaves saw their loved ones. All of that she collects into the Book of Lost Friends, which shows up later. Each chapter begins with an actual ad from the Advocate, and they are heartbreaking. Fast forward to Benny, which really, do we have to? Because she's every Wesley graduate's hero, and if you find your eyes rolling every once in a while at her earnestness, join the club. There is a mysterious mansion and secret graveyards, an unbelievably valuable library, and a closed-minded school board that's closed-minded in a way that just makes no sense. I mean, what's the problem? Feels very much like a plot device to create some rather unnecessary tension. And of course, the brooding and troubled hot guy Gossett heir who Benny bats an eye or two at, and vice versa. Wingate really needs to work on her romantic tension. And of course, the obligatory acknowledgments section at the end, which I swear is longer than some of the chapters. I guess this is a modern author MFA thing, trying to elevate fiction writing to the level of scholarship. Now granted, novels that are based on historical events can often be enhanced by an acknowledgement section that thanks the people who assisted in the research and a list of further resources should the reader be interested. But since fiction springs fully armored from the author's forehead, it's a bit disingenuous to gush about all the little people who helped the vision and the greatness that is me. If you think it makes you look humble, think again. Everyone knows we writers are nothing but giant gas bags of unrequited ego. Old guy here. See you later.